everyone. Welcome to Bookends of Recovery. Thank you for being here. I'm Life Coach Laura, and I believe we can recover and heal through hope and action. Today, we are talking about managing triggers. So, whether you're the one struggling or the loved one of someone struggling, this podcast can help you learn how to navigate that complex world of triggers. If you're not familiar with what a trigger is, obviously they're going to vary from person to person, depending on what your addiction is or what the trauma is that we've been through. But those are those uncontrollable emotional responses caused by a specific stimulus that's around you. And it can happen from just about anything, and sometimes it's very unexpected. You could just be walking along and it's like, bam, all of a sudden it happens. And so that's what we're going to be digging into today. And we're going to talk about ways to figure out either how to manage your way through them or how to try to figure out ways to not be around them if possible. So if you're someone who's in recovery, it would be places like your old haunts or places like you've used, but we'll dig into that further. And if you're somebody who is the loved one, it may be something as simple as, a picture or a smell or even a facial expression. But like I said, we'll dig into that further as I move in. And so I hope you'll join me. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this was because, I'm sure you guys may have seen me on Reddit. I see a lot of posts in there where people just don't know where to begin. They've made this decision where they want to take that first step. And it's a lot, like making that big decision and deciding, yeah, I'm definitely going to move forward with my recovery, and try to get sober, try to, heal, whatever it is your journey is. And they just don't know what that means, because if it was that easy, we'd all do it, right? And the one of the first places we have to start is learning about our triggers. We need to learn what they are, how to avoid them, and how to manage them. And one of the key elements is to learn how to listen to what our body is telling us. And so we begin by tuning into our bodies and paying attention. And if you've listened to this podcast before, you know that I am always talking about halt and blast. And that just means it's an acronym for, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and bored, lonely, angry, stressed, and tired. So when we're feeling any of these things, we can be more susceptible to our triggers. So identifying these things and then addressing them can help us keep ahead of our triggers and keep us grounded in the present. And then moving past that, we also need to identify people, places, things, right? If any of you are in 12 steps, you know that. And then we also need to be aware of emotions and situations. And these are the things that make us want to act out in a healthy way. All right, so we're going to start by paying attention to what your body is telling you, because it's going to send out an SOS signal. Your instinct, and I did a blog post that I believe went up today, um, that it is your instincts are telling you, hey, something's going on, and you want to pay attention to that. It's saying, I'm telling you right now, I'm feeling triggered in this moment, and I'm sending you this alert in the way of, and it could be shallow breathing. Your heart is racing, your thoughts are starting to get, like those racing thoughts, or you're feeling like you're sweating, your palms are getting sweaty. I just saw an Eminem song. That's how old I am. You might be trembling, your jaw is getting tight, even as I'm talking, like I'm clenching my fists. Or you're getting that feeling of trying to isolate or withdraw from people. Or you're starting to come up with those excuses, right? Those thoughts of justifications or rationalizing, um, using, or if you're in healing, maybe you're trying to heal and not do certain things that are unhealthy for you, but you're like, oh, I can do it. I can get away with it just this one time. Maybe you're starting to engage in negative self talk, like, you know, I'm not worthy of recovery. Nobody loves me anyway. Who cares? That kind of thing. Um, and so, if you notice that happening, there are steps you can take. So, notice it first and address it. So, ideally, if you notice that you're doing these things, and we'll talk about that in a second about addressing each thing, but you want to pay attention to your body so that as soon as those things are starting to happen, there's a moment in your more moments as the cycle is happening of you getting ready to act out in an unhealthy way, that you can step out of that behavior and stop. And your body is giving you the first indicator. So pay attention to it. You may notice that as your body is telling you things, you might start engaging in risky behavior. You might just like take a casual drive past your old haunt. You might want to make a phone call or a text to someone, an old friend that you used to use with, or you're watching movies or shows that are triggering to you, where people are using or drinking. Maybe you're not attending enough recovery or support groups or meetings. It's possible that you're not managing your time well, which is causing you undue stress. Notice, and this is something I was guilty of, if you're in unhealthy relationships, and I'll give you an example. What I did was I was sober for almost a decade and thought I was doing great. But what I did was I was in unhealthy relationships. And so I was in relationships with alcoholics, and then I would try to fix them. And then when they didn't get fixed, I would break up with them, find another alcoholic, and try to fix them. And then they didn't get fixed, break up with them. And it was just a very unhealthy pattern. I didn't even recognize it until I was finally in working on my own deep recovery and working on my emotional sobriety, and I was actually working in there's a book called Workbook for Progress, Blueprint for Progress, sorry, and it's actually from Al-Anon, and I was in AA, but I was just doing the sister book, And I was writing it down. And I was like, how did I not see this? Like, how did I not see this pattern? But I didn't because I was living it. But these are risky behaviors that you have to be aware of because they make you more susceptible to acting out in an unhealthy way. Okay, so sometimes we can't get away from people, places, things, situations. And so this is when we need to learn how to manage our triggers, right? Because if we can't get away from them, if they're unavoidable, um, we have to learn how to live with them. And sometimes that needs to come with acceptance. So rather than trying to control things in our lives, we learn how to accept them and let go of trying to direct everyone and everything in our world. Like what I was trying to do with the unhealthy relationships, I was trying to control those people and their recoveries. Whether I was trying to do that in an I was doing it in an unhealthy way. I was whether I was being passive aggressive about it by leaving AA whatchamacallit, pamphlets. I wasn't going, because I wasn't drinking. I was quote unquote sober. I just wasn't emotionally sober. He was drinking, so I thought I was fine, but obviously I wasn't. So I was trying to control people, and I was not letting go. And so I was not accepting. So rather than trying to control things in our lives, we learn how to accept them and then let go of unhealthy things. We let go of trying to direct everyone and every situation. So I want to share a part of the big book, and you don't have to, I'm not saying that everyone in recovery has to go to 12 steps. That was part of my journey. I don't go to 12-step meetings anymore because from there I went to support groups, and then from there I did other things. So everyone's journey is different. But I do want to share this part from the big book because it does talk about acceptance, and I think it's really cool. So let me just share this with you. It talks about a woman she shared, and acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I'm disturbed, it's because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of life unacceptable to me, and I find no serenity until I accept that person, place, or thing, or situation as being exactly the way it's supposed to be at this moment. Nothing happens in this world by mistake. Until I could accept I put addiction, but it's alcoholism. I couldn't stay sober unless I accept life completely on life's terms. I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as on what needs to be changed in me and my attitudes. Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. He forgot to mention that I was the chief critic. I was always able to see the flaw in every person, every situation. I was always glad to point it out because I knew you wanted perfection, just like I did. Acceptance has taught me that there is a bit of good in the worst of us and a bit of bad in the best of us. And so I had highlighted that last sentence because it was a good reminder for me, because something that I had struggled with was humility. So I had highlighted the sentence, acceptance has taught me that there is a bit of good in the worst of us and a bit of bad in the best of us. And it's not that I thought I was just this, amazing human being, I wasn't like that. But the issue that I struggled with at the time was because what I was going through with my husband at the time, I needed to be reminded that he and I were both addicts. He and I were both hurting. Neither one of us were better than the other. And that when I was in the rooms, when I was in support groups, we were all the same people, no matter what our journey was. And that I always needed to be mindful that, whether somebody was coming in with a completely different struggle than mine, not to compare it. And I was struggling with that at the time because someone would come in and I would be like, oh, well, that's nothing like what I went through. I don't think that's an issue at all. And that was the wrong attitude. And that was the chip I had on my shoulder. And then when I was helping people, when I started sponsoring people, I thought, I'd been in the rooms for like all of 6 months, and so I thought, well, obviously I know so much more than they do, which is so not true. And here I am over 10 years later, and I'm like, I'm still learning. We just are constant works in progress. And so I needed to be reminded that I had to have humility all the time. Okay, so that's a total sidebar. I don't know why I started that rant, but here's a bit about my brain. Okay, so what we need to remember about acceptance and how this all ties into triggers is that with people, when we can't avoid them, we need to remember we can't control their mood, their life, etc. And so as I'm recording this, I think you're going to get it a week from tomorrow. So tomorrow's election day, so this is kind of timely. But we can't control their mood, their life, what's going on, what they're going to do with their vote. But we can love and accept them for who they are while we're not taking on their emotions. Um, and that means that, at least for me, I had a way of feeling like I was responsible for mirroring what other people were feeling in my house. So, like, if somebody had a bad day, I would feel guilty. If I had a great day, like, say I came home, maybe I had a great day at work, or I just came home from a lunch with some friends or whatever, and then somebody else in the house was not happy, then I felt like, oh, well, I shouldn't be happy because they had a really shitty day, so why am I feeling good? And so I tended to tamp down my happiness and reflected on them, what they were feeling, and then tried to make them feel better because I felt guilty that I was feeling good. And so I felt responsible for their emotions. And that's not how the world works. I was a people pleaser. And so we have to remember, that's not our responsibility. And sometimes we may have people in our lives that are kind of like vampires with our emotions. They suck it right out of us, and they can be draining. And sometimes we may need to love someone from a distance, either until they are emotionally better or whatever, or until you're in an emotionally better place. I know that for me, I had a friend that I actually had to step away from for a little while because they were not emotionally healthy. And so I've had to wait until they were in a better space. Um, Once they were, because they were doing drugs. And so I was like, sorry, I can support you from a distance, but I cannot be around you. And so thankfully they're in a better place now. But anyway, okay, same thing with locations. We can't always control our environment, but we can accept it and prepare for it rather than stress about what may or may not happen. It's kind of like with our go bags. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And if you don't know what a go bag is, I've done a podcast on it. It's also on my website. But you can prepare. So, if, say, around the holidays, you need to be supportive of your loved ones and go to a location that you don't want to go to, prepare yourself. Bring a call list of people, trusted friends, or a sponsor, or someone in your support group, whatever, and then you'll know that you can reach out to somebody. If you can, make it a limited time. Okay, I have to be there to support my partner, but can we only go for an hour? Or is there if you have to go out of town to visit, is there going to be a room where I can go to decompress? You know, Maybe it's the bathroom, whatever it is, just plan ahead. Um, and then as far as like things, we can't stop our car from breaking down or a bill from being due, but we can accept that it may happen and we can prepare for it. We can keep our car maintained and put money aside for it each month. Think of all the money you're saving by not uh, using your DOC, or drinking alcohol or gambling or spending money on whatever it is that you used to spend money on. You can put that money aside now. So preparation is key. And be mindful that we're doing things to the best of our ability. Allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and putting trust in other people is a really big step. And sometimes it also means that we're stepping back and letting other people take the wheel. Like I said, we don't always have to be the one in control. We can let someone else do it for us and just, let go. And just some food for thought I wanted to share. There's a book called The Power of Now. And in that book, it says, wherever you are, be there totally. If you find you're here and you're here now intolerable and it makes you unhappy, you have three options. Remove yourself from the situation, change it, or accept it totally. Right? So it's pretty cool. I like that mentality, because if you want to take responsibility for your life, you have to choose one of those three options and just make that decision now. And then accept the consequences. There's just no excuses, no negativity, and that keeps your inner space clear. Some tips for managing your triggers in real time, because remember, there's always that way to kind of step out of that cycle before you actually act on an urge. Reframe your brain. It can help to shift your thinking from, I can't do this anymore, to I have a great life because I'm not doing that anymore. Remember, we're in the process of retraining your brain. And so the more we use our brain to focus on the positive, than the negative, the more your brain is going to want to go in that direction. I know we talk about breathing a lot, but that's because it works. So practice box breathing. And if you're not familiar with what that is, you're just going to breathe in, counting to 4 slowly. And you're going to feel the air entering into your lungs. So you want that to be a real deep breath. We call it a belly breath because your belly should be coming in and out. And you're just going to hold your breath for 4 seconds and try to avoid inhaling or exhaling during that 4 seconds. And then slowly exhale through your mouth for 4 seconds. And then just repeat that and think of like almost going around. You can't see me, but I'm drawing a box. But repeat that like 3 or 4 times and then you'll feel more centered. And then write. We talked about journaling. Write and write some more. Uh, there's a post on my blog about all the different ways that you can journal. One of the great ways is just a word vomit. It's just so cathartic. It's actually called brainstorming, but word vomit just sounds better because you're just getting all that stuff out of your brain. And then face the trigger. I know it sounds a little unusual, but talk to it. You want to lessen its power. So, as you're feeling it, and the reason we do this is because you want to acknowledge it's there. So, let's just say a trigger comes. I'm just going to bring one up. So, okay, I'm driving down the street and drive past, I don't know, let's say I'm up in New York and I drive past the place where I used to live. I don't know why I would go over there, but whatever. So I drive past the place I used to live in the dope house, and there it is, and I'm like, whoa, I could really use some Coke right now. And I would just talk to it. Why are you here? Why do I feel like I need Coke? I have a great life. Why would I want to ruin it with that? What is it that I'm missing? That kind of thing. And just keep talking to it, and then ask, what purpose are you serving? What am I missing? And just keep talking to it until you can answer all the questions. Because the idea is you're going to lessen the trigger's power. You can create a positive playlist or a reading list, a podcast list of people who inspire you, music that is uplifting to you, or just kind of get you moving. Anything to pull you to the present, because that's the idea. You want to be grounded and pulled away and redirected. And also make sure that you have someone to talk to, because on your recovery journey, you need to have a support system. And that support system should not be your loved one. Your loved one can be there to kind of bounce ideas off of, but they can't be your accountability partner. So have someone that you can lift up that phone and talk to them. But yeah, so have like a trusted source or an ally, a life coach, a counselor, a sponsor, somebody aside from yourself. They talk about in 12 steps about having a higher power. They don't mean just, because one of the reasons I didn't go to 12 steps was because, man, it's going to be so religious. It's not, at least not the ones that I went to. But I was told at one point, because it was something I actually struggled with, was, just put it anywhere. And at one point I had it, I was able to put stuff like onto a tree and just imagine like my stress and stuff, just each leaf would just fall to the ground, just stuff like that. Um, so, some takeaway thoughts for you. Do you know your triggers? If not, you can try to, as you're feeling those sensations that I talked about in the beginning of the podcast, um, write them down and then assign some thoughts and feelings to them so that you'll notice that when you're around a certain person or at a certain place or in a certain situation, you're feeling these feelings, whatever they are. You don't even have to identify the exact feeling, just notice that it's happening. And then see if you can avoid that person, place, thing, emotion, situation, whatever it is. Is there a way to avoid it? Now, if it's a feeling, what can you do to address it? Is it something you need to talk about to somebody? If it's a person, place, thing, situation, what can you do to either move away from it or uh, manage it? What tools can you use from your recovery toolkit to cope with your triggers? And if you don't have a lot of tools in your recovery toolkit, what can you think of to get more? And if you need help, take a look at my blog. There's a ton of stuff on there. There's a lot of grounding techniques that you can use. So no matter where you are in your journey, whether this is your first day, your 100th day, your 101st day, I want you to know that you can do this. You have the strength you never thought possible. I'm in your corner. And if you have any questions about triggers, how to manage them, or anything else, please let me know. I have free downloadable worksheets on my website, which is lifecoachlaura.org. And yeah, let me know. And if this is not a way to try to get you to be my client, I do this because I want to help. And I know a lot of people, it's expensive. So yeah, don't worry about it. You are an absolute superstar. So I cannot thank you enough for listening. And I hope you take care.